I am going to record today's meeting, so it looks like we're recording again. I think I had it set automatically. So just so folks know, if you don't want to, well, I can't tell you for sure how that'll turn up with the webcams. If the webcams turn up on the recordings, I think they do, don't they?
Typically.
Yeah. But just so folks know.
Hello, I'm not Brett Matozzi and Mary Lou. I'm Justin Benjamin.
Oh, hi, Justin. Good. I'm glad you're on. Yeah, I about threw a fit when I heard you weren't going to be on for a while. I was a little concerned. I thought we need you. So good to see you.
Yeah, good to be with you guys. I don't know how I missed this one, but I didn't miss it.
Good deal.
And me and Fred have been working together since I started this role. He was the first person I met. So
Right. Awesome. Well, thank you. We're glad everyone's here, and we're glad you're here, Justin. I'm going to ask everyone if they could to mute their microphones. It is a very large meeting. Dr. Devoskin, do we have you here with us?
Hi.
I'm going to make an exception and say hi to Dr. Joel Devoskin. Hi there.
How are you?
Good to have you with us. Quite an honor. How's things going down southern Arizona?
Well, I don't know. I don't ever leave the house hardly. So.
Well, when we ever get to have another big event, we'll get you out of there. Thank you, Dr. Devoskin, for being with us.
Joel's fine.
Yes,
right,
good
Joel.
Morning, Dr. Devoskin. Nice to
Yeah.
see you.
He's for those of you that don't know, Dr. Devoskin is a real expert in correctional behavioral health services and work, and is really a nationally known expert. So it's a real honor to have you with us, and it's an honor to have each of you with us. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. If everybody could mute their microphones, I have to ask you that. I apologize, but due to the large number of people that we have joining us today, my name's Mary Lou Burnsick, and I am the director of David's Hope, and you were at a meeting of the Arizona Mental Health Criminal Justice Coalition. A special session, actually. Normally our meetings are the second Wednesday of every month. And we are having this special session because we were excited when we were able to meet a couple of folks that are going to be presenting today, and thought it was so important that it merited changing our normal schedule and having this special meeting today. Today we're going to have Fred Nelson, the executive director of the Inside Out Network, and he had quite a resume that we had sent out several times, but I just want to mention that Fred is a pastor, a former missionary in Bangladesh, and prison ministry leader, starting his own organization, founding Under the Door Prison Ministry, and writing the Spiritual Survivor Guide for Prison and Beyond. And that is exciting. We're also going to have Kerry Hyatt, who is the Reentry Coordinator for the Arizona Department of Corrections, Community Corrections Division. And Kerry is a longtime partner of our Arizona Mental Health Criminal Justice Coalition, has been with us supporting the work for a very long time, and does a tremendous work in reaching out to serve the needs of the community, creating coalitions to serve those coming out of incarceration around the state. And last but not least, we're going to have Cheri Horbacz in the second hour. Cheri is the Outreach and Education Director at the Southwest Fair Housing Council. and amazing work that she's doing, educating people, including me, educating people across the state as to federal guidelines and much more when it comes to folks with criminal backgrounds and disabilities and numerous other issues, I'm sure, being able to obtain rental housing. So a lot has changed. Federal guidelines have changed over the years, and Cheri is here to report those changes, which are, many of them are very good, very important, and really change the landscape for people that have a criminal background and often are told to take a hike as soon as they reveal that. I've always said it was harder to get an apartment than it was to get a job for folks that are have a criminal background. So really, it's really groundbreaking when we learn and educate ourselves as to the rights that we have and the tools that we need in order to make the systems work in our behalf and keeping our community safe. So our efforts are ongoing to touch on all of the areas in the sequential intercept model and those coming out of incarceration and under community supervision and beyond that are a part of people starting over and people not becoming re-engaged in the justice system. So it's bad enough to be engaged once in the justice system, but to have it happen more than once is just double disastrous. So serving the needs of those coming out of incarceration is going to benefit all of us in the community. Sometimes we don't realize how much it will if you don't have someone who's directly involved. But I welcome you all here. I'm very grateful that you're all taking the morning with us today. I'm going to mention a couple of things before I turn it over to Pastor Fred. We have the chat box, and we will be utilizing that throughout the meeting. We are going to have you put any questions or comments into that chat box, and we will get to as many of those as we're able. When you put those in, we have that set so that everybody will see your question, and we will be sharing answers. If we can't get back to you in the meeting today, then we will follow up with you afterwards. And the other thing is, please feel free to ask us if you need help afterwards connecting with any of the resources that were mentioned during the meeting, and that's what we're here for. We are just a catalyst to try to open doors so that you can meet the folks you need, and that's really what Pastor Fred's work is, helping open doors so folks can walk into the services that they need. And just one other thing that you'll always hear me mention, we have a very brief 3-question survey, and then there's a chance to enter your email in and request to be added to our David's Hope email list if that's something that you'd be interested in. So please take a minute to fill that out before the end of the meeting. That is in the chat box. If you don't see it, let me know. Sometimes I've heard people have trouble finding it, and we can re-enter that. But you should be seeing it up at the top of the chat box, right at the first entry where we welcome you into the meeting. So I'm going to start out now with Kerry Hyatt. Kerry is, as I said, a great partner and friend of the coalition, and Kerry is the one who's responsible really for us all being here today, because she's the one who introduced me to Pastor Fred. So Kerry, I'll turn it over to you.
Great, thank you. Good morning, everybody. Mary Lou, thank you so much for putting this together. I'm seeing all these names, and it feels like Old Home Week. And what just a great effort here, Mary Lou. Thank you so much. I wish we were all meeting in person, but since we're social distancing, this is second best. So thank you, Mary Lou. So what I wanted to talk a little bit about is some of the work that I've been doing. I am the Reentry Coordinator for the Community Corrections Bureau out of the Department of Corrections. We changed our name, Department of Corrections, Rehabilitation, and Reentry. So I'm old school. I was saying DOC, and I was just getting used to saying ADC, and now it's ADCRR for everybody's note-taking there if you're keeping track. So a big part of the work I do is also as a grant project manager. The Department of Corrections got a grant from the Second Chance Act funding. And a big part of what we've been doing is working with coalitions to look at collateral consequences and to look at the culture at the local level of how receptive the culture is to accept people who are reentering the community, transitioning back out of prison. And while we're doing that, we've also been working on the culture within ADCRR. We've been doing motivational interviewing with a large number of our staff. We started out doing that with our community correction officers. We've moved to the CO3s, who are basically case managers and do a lot of reentry planning in the department. And we've started now there was a big push and a big request from the CO3s to say, you know what, more people inside the institution need this. And we've been up until a couple of things happened. We were training our CO2s and the command staff in motivational interviewing. And there's a big push to change our culture and to make those changes. Well, we're working also at the local level. ADCRR can't do successful reentry alone. We need help from all of the stakeholders and our partners at the community level. So the second part of that grant was to work with coalitions. We were going to develop coalitions and enhance the coalition work. And so in doing that, one of the first things that comes up is that there's a lot of resources, but there's a lot of silos. We want to break down those silos. But getting your arms around what the resource picture looks like at the local level in the community, in a county, has been really difficult in figuring that out. And that list changes as soon as you publish it. It changes. The people who you contact change, what people do changes. So there's a lot of discussion that has gone on around resources. So once that's established, at the same time, there's about 40,000 people who are on probation in the state. Typically, we have 6,000 to 6,500 people on parole. And they all work in different places. They all live in different places. And how do you connect any resource listing to that almost 50,000 people? There's hundreds of probation officers, and we have about 165 parole officers, and they all work a little different. It's not consistent in how they work. And so connecting those people who need the resources to that resource picture is really hard to do. And so when I started talking with Fred and working with him and putting him together with as many of my contacts as I can and getting the word out about his project, Mary Lou is obviously, with her network and the force that she is in this state, obviously that was just a given that I would connect them and let Fred talk to Mary Lou's network, and really important work that is going on there. So the Department of Correction is looking at helping Fred get a significant number of service providers who can be part of his network. And then when that happens, we're looking at doing something that I think is extremely innovative. And I've checked with the people I work with at the federal level, and there's not a project really like this going on. But we're looking at having tablets in the hands of our inmates, and that they can start doing release planning and look at the resources that are available to them and be able to connect with those resources once they're out with that tablet. So I think Justin's going to be a big help in that project and connecting the inmates with tablets and making all these connections. That point of connection has been the challenge. So with that, I'm going to let Fred talk about how that's going to work. And Mary Lou introduced you, I think. So I'm just going to go ahead. Is that okay, Mary Lou? Just to turn
Thank
it
you,
over
Kerry.
to Fred.
Yes, absolutely. Appreciate it, Kerry. And we'll welcome Pastor Fred Nelson, who's going to be sharing regarding the Inside Out Network and potentially what'll really be a change the landscape for reentry here in Arizona. Pastor Fred?
Yeah, thanks. Hey, everybody. Great to be with you this morning. I don't know. Honestly, I think this Zoom thing is actually better than meeting in person because I would not have ever seen Frank's cat otherwise. And I feel what a cool cat and feel richer for it. Look, just a couple of quick things this morning. Just want to say, this is serious from our perspective. You guys are the heroes. Many of you are the direct service providers. Many of you are working with ADCRR or other organizations. You're the frontline folks. You're the heroes, but also so are the men and women leaving prison or the men and women on parole and probation. And so kind of dealing with the tough things of life, what we want to be, how we really see ourselves is seeing kind of coming along alongside you all to see where there were a couple of key problems, kind of systemic evils in the system. New to Arizona, moved at the end of October to relocate and to be able to do work here, but pioneered some of this work in Illinois and in Chicago, and kind of saw some of those same things. And those twin evils that are across the system are isolation and invisibility. It's not that people are lazy or uncaring or heartless, right? It's that they're disconnected. And so that disconnected on several levels. So that the evil of invisibility is that the people who are looking for help can't see it easily. Kerry was just talking about people coming from all over to all over. And it's very difficult to be able to see the relevant help that's close enough where you can get access to it and use it in real time, in a timely way. And then also on the other side, from your side, where you sit on that side of the desk, to be able to see the people that you want to easily and effectively reach. They're invisible to you often. And so that kind of looking for something that would help bust the invisibility down. And then the whole problem with isolation, inmates and returning citizens are isolated on many levels, but so are all of you. You're in your, operate in organizational silos for the most part. You're obviously all collaborating together here with Mary Lou's group, and that is a hopeful, helpful sign. But most of us pretty quickly get back to our own, into our own silos, and that just makes it harder for the men and women leaving prison to be able to leapfrog around and to find their way across a kind of a disconnected, fragmented network. And so we said, how can we tackle some of these systemic evils to make them a bit better than they are now? This is not what I'm going to show you. It's not the solution to everything, but we think it's a helpful step in that direction. And so what we've done, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do here, and then I'm going to do it. I'm going to give you a quick overview and a kind of a model and a kind of a framework, a metaphor for thinking about what I'm going to show you. And then I'm going to demonstrate it twice in quick succession so you get a sense of what actually makes it tick. What we've done is created what's technically called a multi-sided platform. And we use those, that's the technical phrase for things that we use every day. eBay is a multi-sided platform, brings buyers and sellers together. And eHarmony is a platform that brings men and women together. Look for people that are single and who want to be seen, want to connect, want to be empowered to connect easily. and directly. Airbnb brings people looking for places to stay and people who have places to stay. So these kinds of platforms, these meeting places, a mall is a multi-sided platform that brings shoppers and vendors together. But then, and we use these things all the time, but there isn't something like this for reentry. It is not the kind of sector that lends itself easily to this. There's not a lot of money in doing these things, and yet if there's any sector that could really use it, it's this particular one. So what we've done is to create a kind of special type of website that functions, like I said, like a dating site would, that wants to connect people who want to be connected, who want to be seen, and who want to see a potential match out there. So that's both the group of the phrase we use, we're using in Chicago a lot, and we're hearing around the country is returning citizens. So that's there's different phrases to be used, and that's the one that I'll be using today. To use that group of folks and want to connect with service providers on the outside. What you're going to be seeing is not just a database. There are plenty of those out there. They have limited value, as you know. Lots of service providers come and go. Funding comes and goes, and founders come and go, and people come and go, and it's kind of difficult to keep those things up to date. This is proactive, this is interactive, and there's kind of a higher engagement going on. And so it has four key aspects that I'm going to tell you about, and then I'm going to go ahead and show you kind of how that works. So the first phase is enrollment, and that's the phase that we're in now. And we've worked with ADCRR, and the agreement is that we want to have a baseline, a critical mass of service providers enrolled, so that when inmates start to look at it, there's actually something to look at. So we're in the phase of this first phase of enrolling the initial 75 service providers. We're a little over a third of the way there at this stage. COVID has slowed us up, and we just got started kind of late spring here to be doing this anyhow. But things are moving here. So we're on our way to this initial enrollment process. For inmates, they will be enrolled initially in a paper-based system, and then eventually the vision is, as Kerry was mentioning, is to have inmates enrolling themselves directly on tablet computers pre-release and engaging in this. So it's really an exciting, and it is revolutionary and kind of groundbreaking move, and having Arizona at the lead of this nationwide is an awesome thought. So kudos to the department for having that kind of vision. That's the first part, is enrollment, and by creating a profile, and I'll show you what a profile for a returning citizen looks like, and I'll show you the profile for a service provider. Then there's searching for the help. And it works both ways. Show you that. Sort of deeper engagement by messaging can go back and forth. And then finally, there's a collaboration tool that's built into this to not only connect returning citizens with service providers, but also connecting service providers with other service providers and with volunteers and advocates. Some of you aren't directly, a direct service provider, but you're involved in this whole sector, and so you could be an advocate for criminal justice reform, or just being part of the conversation. There's a role for you as well. So that's the kind of background for it, and I think it'll start to make sense as we start to kind of dive on in. And I'll do a demo twice. One from the first from the perspective of a returning citizen and what that experience looks like. That's a different experience than the service provider would be needing to have, because they have different needs and concerns. And then we'll do that also from the perspective of a demo service provider, and you get to see what that looks like as well. But I'll pause and just wonder if, Mary Lou, are there any questions in the chat box or anything at this stage?
Hi, thank you, Fred. We do have a comment. I don't think it's directly, it has to do with oversight at parole contracted halfway houses. I don't think it exactly fits into your topic right now.
Let's hold it, and we can circle back and see if that's something that has, later on, there'll be some
Right.
traction around that question. Sure.
Yes, yes, I think it's a very
And
good question.
I'd love to give my contact information and talk, maybe on Monday it would be good. I think that was from Andrew. And Andrew, I'd like to hear your thoughts and talk with you directly. Just, you and I can talk this out.
Thank you, Kerry, and that's is a great question.
Yeah.
Thanks, Andrew, for that. So otherwise, it looks like, Fred, you're okay to move on.
Okay. So is everything yellow on your screen? I'm hoping that's what you've been seeing.
Well, we're still seeing the background where your icons are.
Yeah, it says Inside Out Network connecting returning citizens with service providers, right? That's what we're all looking at. Very good. So that's the main place to go. And it's simple, insideoutnetwork.net. And this is what will come up. This is the main place you go to either create a profile or to sign in. And I will show you really quickly, just here, where it says register under there. There's 3 ways to register. Register as a returning citizen, register as a service provider, register as a volunteer. I just want to show you the service provider. Click on that really quickly so that you can just see how. So this is your registration form. If you were ready at the end of the day and you say, this is awesome, I got to be part of this, you simply fill this out and 5 minutes later, you're good to go. And it's only this long, that's it. Username, password, provider name, just some simple general things about yourself. Business hours, email address, and then some prompts for the service provider. This will all make sense in a little bit. Write, call, email for appointment or eligibility requirements, whether there's county residency or minimum age or restrictions, no sex offenders or violent offenders or female only, whatever it would happen to be that you have for your particular programming that you have, maybe some things to do with insurance that's taken or not taken, those types of things. Cost for services, 0, sliding scale, whatever that you happen to have for what you're doing. There's a little sliders, whether you want walk-ins or welcome at your place or not. And then here's one of the key things for service providers for you to be able to decide, and then you can select all that apply. And this is what's going to help make them a relevant match with people that are leaving prison. We have 9 categories. It's arguable about whether you could have them down to 6 or 7 or out to 50. But we've talked to lots of inmates and lots of folks leaving prison, and these are categories that make sense to them, and these are the ones that consistently went to the top of their list. So shelters and housing, support networks, multi-service agencies. We're using this as a kind of a grab bag for places that offer case management or haircuts or bus passes. All sorts of things can come under that category. Churches and ministries, substance abuse treatment, healthcare, legal matters, employment and job training, and education. These were the categories in the minds of the folks who are looking for help. That's why, and then your organization maybe say, we do shelters and housing, we do substance abuse treatment, and we have support networks. That's kind of how we would be listed, and then you would be able to be matched and, for folks on the, who are looking for those kinds of help. An ability to give a longer description of the services you provide, a shorter description, and we'll see this when we look at the search function. A photo or logo that you'd like to upload and then submit. And I didn't say anything about money. That we never charge anything to inmates, returning citizens, or their families, or the state. But so service providers, we're all in this together as a network, and everybody has some skin in the game. There's 1 free year to do it, to try it, to kick the tires and see how that works. And that clock gets ticking from the day that ADCRR starts to enroll inmates in large numbers. Free year, and then it's $100 a year per service provider. Even if you have more than 1 location, it's still only $100 per organization per year. So not very expensive. But we're going to go back, and I'm going to sign in. That's how that registration, and then simply enter and you're in. You self-register, you self-enroll into the system. You don't have to kind of go through us to make that happen. I'm going to walk you through a demo of signing in for Joe Newman. So this is the welcome screen, the dashboard up here, the dashboard for Joe Newman. Now we're looking at, most of you, I'm guessing, are looking at it on a desktop or a laptop. Joe is probably looking at it
Fred,
on his cell phone. Yeah.
could I interrupt you for a second?
Yes.
Is there a way that you could make the section that you're working on so it covers up the background so we could see it a little better?
Is it not, is it leaving a lot of stuff on the screen?
Yeah, we're seeing, you know, all your icons back there are still showing up.
That off, and I wondered why it didn't.
There we go.
But normally, Mary Lou, I have a green line around the screen I'm sharing, and that didn't come up. So you know what? Let me try this.
Well, it's bigger now. It's much better.
I did, but hold on. I'm going to stop the share, and I'm going to share again. Does it fill up the screen without any icons?
Yes.
Put the icons at the top. Okay, got it. Sorry, I clicked on the wrong thing the first time.
Okay.
So I appreciate that. Sorry about that.
Sure.
Okay, so we're at Joe Newman's dashboard up here. And so Joe wants to do a couple of key things with us. He wants to be able to search. He can message back and forth, and I'll show you that in a minute. Joe himself under here has a profile, and there's some frequently asked questions he can look at. He has a list of saved service providers of all the service providers he could be looking at. He keeps his own working list here. I'll show you that in a minute. There's a little notepad widget. I'll show you that really quickly. Send resume to Tina, call Tom tomorrow. These kinds of little things. Often they don't, a lot of your clients are kind of scribbling notes on the edge of their, you know, of an envelope or something to try to remember what they're supposed to do next. And can kind of keep these notes. And one of the things, all this information, all these notes are kept, even if they lose their phone, that kind of thing, that doesn't go away because this is just stored in their profile, stored in the cloud for them. So I'm going to walk you through Joe's experience. Let's say Joe is based, I'll show you his profile really quickly. Joe is based in Chicago. You see the address here, 920 West Wilson in Chicago. That's on the north side of Chicago. He's fictional. And Joe will be asked, are you under parole supervision, projected release date? There's optional questions about, do you want to put in, you know, graduated high school, can just put those things in. And these are the things that Joe is wanting to share with potential service providers. There are some optional questions here that have you ever been convicted of a violent offense or a sexual offense? Doesn't have to answer these questions. But we say, in order to better match you with appropriate service providers and save you frustration, you know, if you can say yes, no, prefer not to answer, or can just skip it if they don't want to do those. And here is where Joe then picks out what Joe is interested in upon release. His caseworker may think he needs different things, but these are the things that he feels motivated to be matched with and to be looking for. And then we'll click say, you know, I didn't think I needed legal matters. I thought I had that taken care of, but I didn't. Now I want to click those things. And then there's a free form area at the bottom, anything you'd like service providers to know about you, and enter it there and simply update the record. It's fairly simple. There's a paper form of this that Joe would fill out in prison, and then we have volunteers enter the data in for him. I'm going to go back to the dashboard. I'm going to show you how the search function works. So Joe's address, you saw that, is based in Chicago. And I'm going to just go ahead and we'll do, how about we do healthcare? And so here's some of the closest 10 that came up for Joe based on proximity to where he is, and it lists them. Everybody's probably seen search results that look very much like this before. We've got the map view and we've got the list view on this side. And you can see the second closest one is Community Counseling Centers of Chicago. And I'm going to go ahead and click on that just so that you get a sense of what that looks like and what Joe could do. And you've seen results, of course, like this with a little strip of a map. So Community Counseling Centers of Chicago say that of those 9 service categories, they do healthcare. There's their website, you can call. But here's one of the things, clicking in just to send a message. Joe just has to click that, enters the message, and sends it. doesn't have to wonder who at the organization has to find the email for. Imagine though Joe is on his tablet in a facility, could send the message saying, I'm interested, I need to be doing some things when I get out, some case management, medication monitoring, counseling, therapy, parenting classes, Spanish services available. So they said some things about themselves. He could send a message and Joe could just click on this little favorite heart and add it to his working list or not. It's that simple for Joe to be able to navigate, to see some of the help that's out there, and to send a message. He's not real and they are, so we won't send a message here. But that's how the search function works for any of these areas. Let's just do shelters and housing. And here we had like 22 matches that popped up for Joe. And it's based on his address up here. You can change that address at any time. If he's on a different part of the city, put it in, and then expand or contract the distance away. If he's on buses, he doesn't want to go 100 miles, right? But if he's in rural Arizona, he may very well want to look out in a radius to go quite a distance to find the kind of help that he's looking for. So these things are all changeable to be able to do it that way. And it's the same, these are the same, the searches are all, function works the same every time. So once Joe learns how to search it once, each time it comes up in that way for him. I'm gonna go back to his dashboard again and show you just a couple of other key things. You've seen his profile. Here's his list of saved service providers. He's got, of all about 160 that we have in Chicago that are enrolled, this is Joe's working list here. And let's say Uptown People's Law Center, he checked with them. They can't do what he wants. He's gonna unfavorite them now. And as he goes back, it's been dropped out of his working list. So, okay, he checked on that, that's fine. And then Joe, so it can be a working tool for him to not to have to remember every time to go back and go through the search function. He can just simply keep a little working list for himself. So Joe wanted to search, he saved some things, he's keeping some notes, but there's one other key level of engagement that he wants is to be able to send messages. So he sends a message and your eye probably caught this one over here on this side. So there's this is an indicator that there's a new message from the demo service provider. So we're gonna go ahead and click on that and you can see what that looks like. So the last message that came in said, can you call Kevin in the office to verify your insurance information? Thanks, right? This was sent by the demo service provider to Joe Newman. If you go all the way to the top, you'll notice that this is a thread of messages that's gone back and forth. This was actually begun by the demo service provider. They saw Joe's profile. They reached out and said, hi, Joe, welcome home. We have a Tuesday evening support group that's full of guys who are working hard to get their life back on track. They initiated, they were proactive. They started this. And he said, great, can I bring a friend? You can imagine psychologically getting out of prison and having this message waiting for you, that people are not just avoiding you, but actually like proactively reaching out and initiating something. So this can be psychologically be a game changer, especially in those first few days, first few weeks of getting out, where finally the service provider can see the people coming out and can initiate something, which really does change some things. So that clears out that new message for Joe. He's seen that now, he's looked at it, so that's cleared out. So that's the core of Joe's experience. He doesn't want to or need to do anything more with the Inside Out Network. It's a platform. He's looking, he's connected, he's looking for help, he's searching, he's being able to reach out and send some messages, get some things back. He's happy. This is working. This is working for him any of the added value that he wants to do with the demo service provider, those things will happen off this platform. And so there's just simply sending simple messages, not attaching application forms and things like that, because then our platform starts to get hobbled with all kinds of HIPAA requirements and other things like that. And rather than doing that, we want to stay in our lane and really be the matchmaker more than trying to be, everything for everybody in this kind of situation. Kind of keep this interface clean and kind of simple about what this is. This gets everybody started, and then they take it off and they do their own way. So I'm gonna log out in a second and then log back in as a service provider and then show you things from the service provider perspective, because it's different, and you've got some different needs and some different capabilities. But I'll pause and just say, Mary Lou, have you got some questions that are popping up at this stage?
I do, and I don't want to slow you down too much, but we have
Sure.
some good questions. The first one, if there are organizations that have the same name across the counties they serve, but different contacts in each county, for instance, Arizona at Work, how will they be distinguished for folks from different counties who may be searching for services?
Yeah, so there are plenty of organizations. I think Community Medical Services, they have like 17 locations. They do, methadone clinics and things like that, right? And they sign up. It's based on the geography. So it could be the same name and then a different, with a different address. Each different address so that it doesn't get, end up going to the Tempe office rather than Flagstaff or something. Each individual location to be listed needs a unique email to go with it. So that will be the distinguishing thing, so that if Joe's looking and he wants the help in Mesa or Tempe, he knows which office he's sending a message to, rather than kind of going into central. And that has to do with the service provider on the back end has multiple locations, just needs to figure out where do we want our voicemails to get routed to? Or who's going to open the mail and kind of handle those things at different locations, however you want to streamline that. But we've talked to a number of organizations that have 3, 4, 6, 17, 20 locations, and it's like that. There's no additional charge. We want those large multi-location service providers in, and we don't want to hit them with $2,000 a year to be in. So we can, but they do have to have a unique email for each location. That's how that's distinguished. Is that helpful?
Thank you. That's simple and easy to understand. And do you want another question now, or do you need to go on?
Sure. No.
Do the inmates get training on computer skills if they need them? I'm sure they're referring to being able to use this system.
So this isn't the silver bullet for every single person, and we know that. We won't be in a position to provide the training. What we've seen and talked to other folks, because tablets have existed at other facilities for quite a while in other states. And often some inmates can be showing other inmates how to do them. There are some that just are really challenged to be using it. This is where what we're finding on the outside is that often it's family members who are helping the parolee navigate and help use the phone. And often then, so even for let's say Joe's wife or mom or something, who's checking on his behalf. I just had one of these a couple of months ago. We had a power user, was just watching, like, this person was sending so many messages and doing these things in Chicago. And I followed up because I wanted to just do a quick survey. And I called the guy and I said, man, you've been on 35 times in the last couple of weeks. How's it going? Are you getting the help you need? And he said, what is this? He said, oh, that's my mama. Right. Mama was finding out some stuff for him. It would have been better if he was doing it, but it does underscore how much, the circle of support can be important in this kind of environment. So we tried to, you see how simple this interface is, right? This is not, we tried to make this, use a lot of conventions, make it kind of simple to use, and, but we don't provide, we're just not designed to go in and provide the training for using that. Hoping ADCRR maybe will have some general info about how to use your tablet computer. I'm guessing there will probably be some of that. I'm sure will be part of is probably already part of the rollout on that.
Yes, and Kerry might be able to share more with us later on that. There's several more, but I think it's very important that we get to the provider section. So why don't we come back to what we can, and if not, you can follow up individually with these others.
Absolutely right. So let's go. So here we go for demo service provider. Here's the link of messages from Joe Newman. There's nothing new. Had we sent one, there would have been a want from Joe saying, okay, I'll give the call. And there would have been a prompt here that there's a new message. Not only that, let me just say, there would have been a prompt in my email. The notification would have been sent out that you have a new message from Joe Newman. And so a service provider doesn't always have to be on this site looking at things to know if there's a new, notifications are kind of built into this so that you can go and check out when there's something new. The search function basically works the same for a demo service provider. You would search and see other service providers out there. You can also search for volunteers by name. So if some of you, register yourself as a volunteer and want to be part of this process, you could look up folks in here. One of the persons, the organizer, Linda Leatherman for the Pima County Reentry Coalition, she's in there as a volunteer. And you could then, get in touch with Linda and message her through the system and to be able to do that. But I really want to show you a couple of other key features here that's different because the demo service provider, your eye maybe went to this 2 that's right in the middle. And so this is one of the key things. So there are 2 new releases. It's a prompt that there's some new releases for the demo service provider. Again, in the profile for the demo service provider based in Chicago. And so these are real people that we're going to click on and see. So there's 2 new ones in the last week or so that have come in, Brad Janikowski and Aaron Walker. And so just for purposes of for you to see how this actually works, and they've been matched with the demo service provider. So I'm going to just click on Brad's. Brad is on the near north side of Chicago, on North Francisco, born here, date of birth in '67. Scheduled release date was July 6th. Some high school, on parole, violent offense. What did he want anybody to know? Had a commercial driver license, need to get it back, but have a lot of driving experience. And of the 9 categories that Brad could have looked for, he did 8 of them. He's looking for help, wants to be connected, wants to be seen. That education was the only category that he did not fill out and click. And all you would have to do, and you said, I think we might have something for Brad, click, you can just send the message directly to him and it goes into his, and he'll get a prompt that he has a new message. So you can imagine, and then click it in and send it. He's real, we're not, that would be, that's not something we're gonna do. But you see how that works. We already showed you how that process works. And same with Aaron Walker. He didn't share any other info about himself. Release date 17th. Looking for shelters and housing, multi-service agencies, and employment and job training. So those are the brand new ones that have just come in. I want to go back to the dashboard to say, well, it's not just the new ones that you want to keep track of. What about all the ones that over time that you've been matched with? And here, under demo service provider, here's a big long list of folks that have been matched over time, and the list goes on. But just to give you a sense that you can then click on a couple of them, let's say these 6 here, and send a group message. Hey, everybody, we have a new, a new program, we have a new anger management class, we have a support group starting, and you can do up to 20 at a time and send those out as a group rather than just one message at a time. So that's a new feature that we've added. Also, and this is important, to kind of integrate some of this client information with your own client management service that you may have as kind of for input or something. You can simply click for your list of my clients, you can click export, and you can download Excel spreadsheet with all your client information for all those fields that are there in in the registration form for a returning citizen. And so all of that stuff, then you can manipulate the data for yourself, right? And just put it in the columns that you want and to be able to have that. So those are some features that for a service provider, you're given like new release coming, you can reach out. Sometimes these new releases come out and the person hasn't gotten out of prison yet. Right, and so you can be in there so that it's the very first thing they see when they get out and they sign on. So those are the main ways to be able to connect with the returning citizens. Again, that's all on trying to bust down the wall of the shield of invisibility that's going on. But there's also the problem of isolation, and so I just wanted to say we built one more piece of this puzzle called the ION Hub. And this is connecting service providers to each other. And so here's, it kind of looks like, some social media interface that maybe you've kind of seen before. There's a main feed, down in the center. And then on the side, there are some groups that you can do. And let me just go ahead and read this real quick and show you one or two things, and then we'll pause and see what kind of questions you might have. So what is the hub? This is a private area. This is not accessible to returning citizens. There was no place to click or see it or get in on this. This is where service providers and churches and volunteers and advocates, reentry advocates, and folks like yourself can interact directly with each other. You can create or join all kinds of specialized groups, such as like volunteers at a specific prison, or people working with female inmates, or churches working with sex offenders. We just want you to be creative. Post a discussion thread in the center to solicit advice or learn best practices or meet pressing needs or make referrals. We just say start connecting. So for example, reminded very vividly of one of the service providers in the city of Chicago who would always kind of start making calls, and I'd get a call and I'd be like the 15th person he'd be calling. He'd say, "Hey Fred, I've got a guy, I got him a job starting tomorrow morning, but he needs steel-toed shoes. You know where I can get steel-toed shoes?" And it was leaving messages, and then we had to call him back. And if he could just crowdsource that by putting some of these things, in a working group in the center, get his answer a lot quicker and a lot more easily. So here's a couple things that we're just seeding some ideas. Here's an online platform called Visitation 2.0. And it's faith-based organizations. Churches are creating video clips to be able to be downloaded onto inmate tablets. And so if you're interested in some of those things, how to get involved in this, or I'll scroll down a little bit. So for the Pima County Reentry Group, that there's this particular Pima County Reentry Guide. Done by the Collaboration to End Homelessness. And you can click on it. Some of these things are hidden gems. They shouldn't be hidden. and so these are the things that lift it up. This is a helpful place to go and to be seeing those things. And then over on the side, you can create a group and just have your own group, Society of St. Vincent de Paul or Pima County Reentry Group, or whatever those kinds of groups that you would want to create. Some of these regional reentry coalitions. Would it be a place where people in between these meetings that we're going to like this could collaborate with each other? So that's the hub. In a nutshell, you get a sense of what that can be, especially if we get up to 500, 600, 800 service providers in multiple states. This could be a busy, interesting place and a tool to use for collaboration. So I'll just kind of go back and hang here at the demo service provider's dashboard and kind of slow it down. That's, I think, in a nutshell, the core of the experience that the service provider wants to be doing here. Again, the ability to get matched with relevant matches, not irrelevant, but you're only going to get matched and see those profiles of people who are close enough to you and who are looking for what you say you do. And that gives you the ability then to reach out and initiate. So I'll hit pause and wonder, just kind of open it up, Mary Lou, if you've gotten any more questions in, or then we can just open it up after that. Just open up for comments and see where we go.
Yes, we've because of our time constraints, I don't know that we're able to get to all of them, but mainly what we're seeing are folks responding and very excitedly thinking about all the different things that can be accomplished through this system. For instance, can a tattoo removal service be listed? So that's kind of up to, I know the answer to that is let's recruit some tattoo service removal folks to sign up for this system. So they are one of the points they were talking about here about folks coming out of prison have access through their health plans to a member advocate with lived experience. That's another service that the folks could be linked to here, and just the amazing potential for education of inmates coming out, I think are the primary points. One question that I think you had received it before the meeting, it talks about concern of who's signing up and whether those folks are, I think they use the word reputable.
Yeah, it's about whether people vetted, right? All of that kind of thing, and screening, those sorts of things. So every multi-sided platform that, at least I've been reading a bunch of things and trying to educate myself about how this, what they call platform governance is, how do you actually run this in a way that it doesn't become the Wild Wild West, right? It doesn't lose credibility. On the other hand, that it doesn't get so restrictive that you're blocking out so many people that really ought to be in. And so, and how restrictive, how hard is it for the access to kind of enter and get in, and in terms of certification. So I about 2 weeks ago, I did a demonstration with ASRA, Arizona Recovery Housing Association, and that there's questions about some bad actors that are in the area of providing substandard housing and certification. It's a real concern. We want to stop bad actors from being on there, but we also don't want to get into the middle of. It's hard to know where to draw the line and who does the certifying and things like that. Let me give you an example, and I think everybody will understand the principle behind that. So I'm a pastor. I'm a Lutheran pastor, but then if you wanted to say which churches are real churches, and what are kind of cults or ministries or and you could see how that could become. It's in the eye of the beholder. What kind of criteria would we use to say who gets to be listed and who doesn't? Here's our criterion. If a service provider treats returning citizens with dignity and respect and honesty and clarity, then they're welcome. If they don't, they're not welcome. And so we're creating on the back end here a feedback forum that there'll be an ability. The people can send feedback to us about any particular provider, and then we'll be able to investigate and check that. That won't be public facing, because this particular group of folks, oftentimes who are leaving prison can have unrealistic expectations or mental health issues or other things like that. That this could be, it could be kind of ugly and people disappointed all the time in this field, and so and just simply doesn't reflect honestly what's going on. But we do want to have a mechanism where we get information back on different folks, and if there's some credible problems, they'll be delisted and barred from the network. The last thing we want to do is to have bad actors that make this whole thing, that bring down the whole network because of bad credibility. So we will. Our tech guys are building a feedback forum for us to be able to do that, and that will show up on the dashboards of both both returning citizens and service providers, so that we can be hearing some things. I hope that's understandable and helpful. We're trying to walk along thread the needle here to be able to open up accessibility as much as possible, but also have a feedback mechanism to block folks who need to be blocked from this. Good question.
Thank you, Pastor Fred. It is, and we've got a request from Dr. DeVoskin. I have a feeling his question might be too complicated for him to type it in. Dr. DeVoskin, if I unmute you, do you want to share briefly? We just have a few minutes left.
Oh, he's muted still.
Yeah. Let me see what I can do here.
There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I'll try to be brief. Well, I'll just ask you one thing. I appreciate the sentiment behind using the phrase returning citizens.
Yeah.
You don't want to say ex-convict or something that's demeaning, but a lot of people leaving prison are not citizens. I would suggest maybe a different term like returning community members or something, just so you don't accidentally give the impression that we're only offering this to people that are citizens. But the other thing I wanted to say is this is brilliant. And have you shared this with the National Gain Center? Do you know them?
I do not.
If you contact me, I'll tell you how to get in touch with them, but they need to know about this. They can give it a lot more airtime nationally if you're interested.
No, I'm not interested. That would be great. That would be great. Can I just say thank you for that. The returning citizens, I don't think anybody's come up with appropriate phrasing that points to people's dignity, but it's also clear enough that people understand what's being referred to. So sometimes I know it took me we used to use in Chicago ex-offenders. I got the point that has a lot of baggage to it, and it was clear, but it was demeaning. So we're trying to find both, always open to it. So using kind of a convention until we find another convention that we feel that everybody kind of gets, makes sense, and goes from there. I was surprised, frankly, that a lot of people in Arizona had not heard the phrase, because I've been going to some national conferences and things, and people use that all the time. But there are pockets, regional differences going on, I guess. So thank you for that.
The word citizen has some baggage. Here.
I know. I agree. I actually agree with your critique on that.
Thank you, Dr. DeVoskin, and I agree. National implications for sure, and county jails is what I was excited about. I mean, think about. I know Fred is working with Kerry, and Kerry, I'm glad you're jumping in here. But yeah. I was excited about county jails. Go ahead, Kerry.
Yeah, I just wanted to say with our grant, we've used the term, which is still a little bit subjective, I guess, is justice involved. And we went to that term because with the grant project, with working with coalitions, we weren't just working with people coming out of prison. We were working people that had been in jail. We were also working with people on probation who had never been inside. But and that's for the purposes of our grant, justice involved seemed to fit. And that seems a little, I don't know, people seem accepting of that. People seem to appreciate that term to some degree. Like you said, it's kind of, I don't know if there is a perfect term, but I'm open to any other suggestions people have. So thank you.
Thank you, Kerry. And it looks like Justin, who I know is working with you, Fred. Okay, that was not out to the group. there's a couple others that I think you'll want to follow up on individually.
Okay, once I get off this, then I can look back into the chat and can go from there. I haven't even wanted to look at the chat, and I'm too easily distracted.
Sure.
First by Frank's cat, and then anything else. So the chat will not. The chat doesn't work for me right now. I just have, if I can just say, you know, want to make sure that Cheri has her time, and I'm so grateful for this opportunity. Just if I can say real quickly, kind of next steps for anybody, if I could just say that, maybe 5 quick things. So if you are a service provider, you work for an organization that you think, yeah, we ought to be in here, and you have a bit of a pioneering spirit, just sign yourself up. Doesn't cost anything, right? Talk to your organization and kind of help us launch this as soon as we can, because we really want to see this in the hands of, you know, thousands of inmates sooner rather than later. So if you are, sign up. If you're a volunteer or an advocate, go back to that sign-in page and just sign in as a volunteer and get on the hub and network and post and do that. That would be the second way. Third way, and this would really be helpful, if and I was just like with Dr. Dvoskin just then, if you know colleagues or other organizations, like this would be a good fit. If you could send like a warm handoff email saying, you know, Tony meet Fred, Fred meet Tony, this is what's going on, and I will take it from there. I will grab the baton and run with it. That would be wonderful. That just speaks volumes. Soon, if you're dealing with already released returning citizens, or maybe someone's been out for 6 months, encourage them to register directly, right? That would be another way. Once we get this thing up and going, there'll be people who had already been released from prison, but will want to get on and to be able to do that. And then finally, if you want a review of something you've heard, or you want it to kind of show it to your executive team or something at your organization, you can go to our site, insideoutnetwork.net/overview, and you can watch the overview video or schedule a demo. I will do this with your organization. I love doing this, and I love finding out from your own organization's perspective, what can we do to help you guys? Because this thing is a work in progress. We're always tweaking it and adding things to it, and continue to prototype it. So thank you, appreciate it.
Tremendous, Fred. And just quickly, I know you'll continue to be working with Justin Benjamin. He's going to be helping folks link up with the network. And Andrew Fleming, thank you. I know you're a great advocate at heart, and he's really excited about connecting up advocates through the health plans to help support people as they use the network. So he's seen potential there. So we're really flying with excitement, I think, all of us, and but we need to put our hands to work, and as you said, Fred, make those connections for those of it. I know you're fairly new to Arizona.
I am.
And but we're sure glad you're here.
Thank you.
And it just seems like the timing is right. So thank you for coming today. And I thought your presentation was very concise, very simple, and I know you'll be able to connect with folks that need to follow up with you on an individual basis. And oh, go ahead.
I'm going to be working the chat box for a little bit here and trying to get back to some people's questions. So I'll be doing some of that.
Super. Okay. Right. Kerry, anything else then? No? Okay.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good. Great. Thank you, everybody.
Okay. Thank you so much. And
I'd like to share real quick, if that's okay, Mary Lou. So,
well, it has to be super quick because we got to get to Cheri, but we're glad you're here, Justin.
Okay. So whenever we're able to have a big enough scaled out provider, cache, I'll be, before it hits tablets, this will be available to the inmates through the desktop. We're not going to wait on anything. As soon as Fred is ready to upload everything and roll it out to our state, it'll begin to get traffic. So the more that we can market and share within our networks, the value of this resource, the quicker inmates can have access to it.
Thank you, Justin. That's very important. I'm glad you jumped in there with that. And we thank you for all you do there and busting the doors down, it looks like. So thanks for sharing that. And you all heard it. So, all right. And we're going to move on. We've got Cheri Horbacz, who the Director of Education and Outreach with Southwest Fair Housing Council, and she's ready to start a very important presentation on knowing the rules when it comes to rental housing and the use of criminal records. Cheri, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, as you mentioned, I am the Director of Education and Outreach for Southwest Fair Housing Council. You will if you didn't get the documents that were supplemental to this in the email, somehow you missed it, we'll make sure that we get it out to you. But there are several documents. I have been working with Southwest Fair Housing Council for over the last 13 years. What we do is we are a nonprofit grant-funded fair housing organization which serves all Arizona communities through grant funds. We work to eliminate all unlawful forms of housing discrimination through education and outreach. We also do this through enforcement. And what enforcement does is they hire people and they call them testers. They train them, they send them out, and what they're testing for is violations of the Federal Fair Housing Act. We are going to go briefly into that before I get into the guidance from HUD about criminal records and the use of rentals. But I would be remiss if I didn't give you a little bit about fair housing. All right. Let me get this switched over. Here we go. Okay, so I'd like to start with that. Not all discrimination is unlawful. Our focus today will be to talk about forms of discrimination in the rental housing, particularly the folks who have been involved with the criminal system. And as you'll see, I use different terms as well, but my preferred term, and I know it's not something that's clear, is I call everybody returning peeps or returning citizens. But returning peeps at least gets everybody in there. So you may hear my version of that anyway. So what is fair housing? Fair housing is the right to live where you want to live without being discriminated against because of something about you as a person under the law. That's otherwise known as the 7 protected classes. Whether you're an advocate or you're for yourself, using this for yourself, you must know what those 7 protected classes are. It's real important that you know not only that there are these 7 and what they are, but a little bit about them. So in the slide bank that I sent you, later once you learn them, please go back and test yourself to make sure that you know what those are. So I had created a little sentence there to help give you the letters of each protected class, and that is not remembering discrimination rules cause giant fines. Each one of those letters represents one of the 7 protected classes, and if we had probably more time, I'd say, hey, everybody, if you know what one of those letters are, type them in. And so if you're near your chat and you see those letters, I know I showed you the 7 pretty quick. Is there anyone that can type in there what they think one of those letters might be? National origin, great job, Denise. All right, so use that tool because it's really important to make sure that to be an advocate that you know what they are and what they stand for. Fair housing does apply to all aspects of housing. What it doesn't apply to is hotels, motels, things that are considered transient. So if a shelter only allows a person for one night and they must take all their belongings with them, that is not subject to fair housing, but it might be subject to the Americans with Disability Act. What's important to know here that it is more than rental housing, but we're going to keep it to that area right now. Now, most commonly what we see out of our office, and the good thing about my job that I love so much is the passion of getting this information out there. We serve all of Arizona. And when people get into trouble, whether it's through the Department of Justice, whether it's through the Attorney General's office, I get to see what those complaints are. And try to bring trainings out to other people so that unintentional forms of discrimination don't happen. I don't have a lot of mercy for those intentional forms of discrimination. but it's the unintentional forms. And this is another reason why knowing what these are would be good, not only to protect yourself, but to protect others. These are the 7 protected classes under the law. We have race, color, national origin, religion, sex, gender, familial status, and disability. We do offer additional classes right now. All our classes are remote. We are tasked in the education department with going out to all the counties across Arizona and teaching these in person, but given the pandemic, we're doing quite a different ones on remote. Just make sure you sign up for them. But those are the 7 protected classes. And I wanted to see if you guys would chat with me a little bit. I know we might not have as much time, but I usually try to get these questions out there. So get ready to chat, and at least some of you can answer. If I have a policy that says, hey, I'm sorry, we don't rent to felons, and my business reason is I don't want any trouble. I want a trouble-free property. Can I do this? So can I have a policy, and then Melissa, I saw you have a question, I'll come back to that. Can I have a policy that says we don't rent to felons? And my business reason, if you ask me, is I want a trouble-free property. Well, as I'm waiting for some people to chat, I'm hoping you're a little bit closer. And you can even say, I don't know. But the important thing is that this is training or meeting is for you, and I want you to get the most out of it. So good, I appreciate you, Justin, Melissa, Norma, Kim. I really appreciate that. You don't know. The answer is no. Under federal law, this was a guidance that we're going to get to. And the thing about this is this guidance was released in 2016. The problem is I don't feel HUD did a great job in getting the message out there. So we are screaming at the top of our lungs to visit anyone that will allow us to do free fair housing classes so that they can learn about this memo. It does happen too often, I agree with you. Policy 2, can I deny an applicant because of the number of arrest records? Like, oh, I'm looking at this applicant, but I have 54 arrests. Can I be denied housing based on my arrest record? What do you guys think? Thanks, Amy. You said no. And yes, Grayson, I'd agree. It does happen too often. And that's where I'm hoping to build stronger advocates for people so we can get them the rights that they need. Norma says no, but what about crime neighborhoods? Actually, we've done a lot of work with that, especially in Tucson. We've got them to change their crime-free disclosure. Don, thank you for sharing. The idea is no, you may not. It is very clear in this guidance. You may not deny someone strictly on the arrest record. So if this is happening to your peeps, make sure that I'll show you where the guidance is if you didn't get the handout, but I'll show you in the guidance and how you can look it up. All right, last one is I can run background checks on only those that look burly. What do you think? Now, I did look up burly, and the 2 guys and the stroller came up under the definition of burly, so I had to share that with you. Okay, I'm seeing some no's. Melissa, conviction is different than arrest. They can't say no because of arrest record, but because arrests are not conviction. That's the key, but our housing providers out there still aren't aware. Thank you, guys. Now, don't leave your chat box too soon because I will have some more coming up. All right, so who are these reentry, justice-involved system, individuals, returning peeps, returning citizens? Who are these people? And, you know, they're just people. They're moms and dads and sisters and brothers and homeless and disabled and even skilled people. They're individuals with a criminal justice involvement, one of the most disadvantaged populations in the nation, I feel. People returning from incarceration need stabilized housing to successfully re-enter our neighborhoods and communities. Housing, as you know, more so now than ever with this pandemic, it is more than just a roof over one's head. It's a stabilizing force. It gives people a constant base from which they can access employment and other services. All the services that are on this program That's awesome. So they will be able to access those. So we have to work together to end the stigma against folks who are coming out of the criminal justice system. So I ask, and you'll see from time to time, I'm going to have that little sign on there that's the call to action. For most part, through my presentations, I always want a call to action, and I want you to be open at least to learning or just thinking about different ways maybe you can do something as a call to action. So Americans have always believed in the power of redemption, that those who have fallen can work towards brighter days. And here is that call to action. Let's come together and help our returning citizens. We may need to open up conversations about the role that you play in helping our returning citizens and peeps secure housing in every opportunity you are able. It may take some open of your eyes to see the opportunities, but they could be there. So I do get the question as I travel around Arizona, is this a problem, incarceration, or is it NIMBY, not in my backyard? It's not an Arizona problem, it's a national problem, right? And I feel like part of this is preaching to the choir, but here's a little bit of data on what the issue is. 11.4 million are released from jails. 600,000 are returning to our neighborhoods. When we look at Arizona, Arizona has an incarceration rate at a higher percentage of its people than many wealthy democracies do. Today's Arizona's incarceration stands out nationally. In Arizona, if we look at just that data, 62,000 people are locked up and behind bars. 145,000 Arizona residents are in our criminal justice system. Okay. Rates have grown over the last 40 years. So I want you to take a moment, find your county location. When you look at these Arizona maps, and when we look at our counties, we can see that the prison population growth is not felt equally across the state. This means depending on where you live in Arizona, these facts show the likelihood of going to prison is different just because of where you live. And if you think about it, where you live, you're being treated differently, adversely, meaning in a negative and unwanted manner. That's the crust of fair housing. Being able to live where you want to live without discrimination because of something about you as a person, which is covered under the law known as the 7 protected classes. What is your county's average sentencing for drug crimes compared to Yavapai County? When you look at Yavapai, you can see it's the highest, and then this graph shows that those who live in Yavapai County will have twice the sentence as those in Santa Cruz. So what does this all mean? HUD came out with this guidance that if you look it up, and that's the full name of it, or it was included in your guidelines, or you reach out to me, this guidance leaves housing providers open to civil suit if it can be proven that their refusal to rent to those with criminal records disproportionately harms protected minority groups under the Fair Housing Act. This guidance addresses how discrimination can be shown in Fair Housing Act cases, and I have a couple. When an adverse housing action is based on a person's criminal history. So I'm going to break that down a little bit because when HUD did release the memo, they really didn't have any help out there, more so for housing providers or for our returning peeps. So I've tried to glean stuff from people who have made mistakes, and because they are testing for it, and been able to bring some of that to you. So as we can see, our returning peeps are not one of the 7 protected classes. So how is it that HUD can come up with this memo? And what this does, it makes me step back and give you the 2 theories of fair housing. One theory says disparate treatment. This involves the 7 protected classes, and you can think of this as direct discrimination in type. Here's an example. I may post a rule that states no kids, and I'm going to ask you to chat, so get ready. I post a rule that states no kids in the pool between 6 and 8 on the 3rd Thursday of every week. My business reason is that this will be the time for adults-only legal activities, of course. I'm not a qualified 55 or 62 property, but all the tenants have come to me with a signed request asking that if they can just have it once a month from 6 to 8, can I make that the adults-only pool? What do you guys think? Yes. Thank you for responding, Amy. Yes, Melissa. Now, if I was in a classroom setting, I would give you guys all that say yes. I would give you a hokey prize because you're all wrong. That's not the answer. Oh, Sonia, you got it. Good. But you'd all get a hokey prize anyway from me. But the key is, no, you may not. If familial status is one of the 7 protected classes, and you can't discriminate if you're not a 55 or 62 property, because that's the only exemption. You can learn more about those in our other classes. Disparate impact. This is where our reentry peeps come in. Disparate impact is about, you think of this as indirect, where my last rule was for and directed towards kids. This is indirect. So this means that you're going to put a rule into place that on its face may look neutral. However, when applied, it does impact a group or groups of person. And this theory requires a look at data. So let's put this in an easy example. As you know, fair housing laws make sure everyone has a chance to find a home. As the housing provider, I decide one of my screening applicant rules is that all people I rent to must be 6 feet tall. The business reason is so that the tenants can change their own light bulb. Now, is this discriminatory? It may not seem discriminatory, and sometimes unfair housing policies are not always easy to spot. But as a responsible housing provider, I don't think my rule targets anything, but since it can be shown that women on average are shorter than men, then this policy would affect women more than men, so that although unintentional, it would be discriminatory. So what does that mean? What's the bottom line? Disparate impact refers to having a rule in place that may not appear discriminatory, but when you do put it into place, it does create discrimination. Thank you, Melissa. This project, the Sentencing Project, was based on the U.S. population, and this chart shows the likelihood of imprisonment. So what HUD has been able to do is say people of color are incarcerated 5 times more than whites, and Hispanics nearly twice as likely to be incarcerated than whites. If we didn't look at Arizona, I would be remiss in not saying that our American Indians are also incarcerated at a high rate. So this is what you can see what it is for Arizona. So because these people are disproportionately affected by the rule, I don't rent to felons, there are fair housing cases that can be brought. The difficulty is this targets African Americans, Latinos, and Native Americans. So unless there's some other factor in there for testing, it might be harder to show disproportionate if the prospect is Caucasian. It doesn't mean that they can't. What it means is every case, if nothing else, you got to know that every case looks at a case-by-case detail. So moving along, if you're in as a housing provider, here are some rules that will help you as a housing provider, not only for our returning peeps, but if you want to look at any of your rules, this is a good practice to look, and this is 3 steps. So this first part is going to be about housing providers. What can you do? My second step is going to be about advocates, applicants, and tenants. If you're returning peeps, what can you do? So HUD has laid out a process that says how you're going to show something discriminatory. And the biggest thing is housing providers look at your policy. These slides you'll have, and I don't read all the slides, but I did give plenty of questions to go through to ask about your policies. Do they create opportunity or barriers? And to think them through before you implement them. Once you think you have them, then you need to look at them and ask, is this policy necessary? Does it achieve what we need to achieve for business reasons? Why did you pick those crimes if you're going to use these particular crimes as a barrier for anyone that comes along that has these crimes, previous crimes? What Why does that? Why are you picking that? Because they can't look at your whole background check. They have to look at a size that would basically say this person is a health and safety risk to my people and my property. So advocates, applicants, and tenants, if you can think from their perspective what they see as trouble, what can you do to show that you are not trouble? Well, before I give you a couple more steps, I do want to point this out. And this is what I see again as I travel and listen to the cases and be able to see the responses, is most housing providers right now are jumping this spot. That's why I would say, from a best practice, from my perspective, no housing provider should ever put no sex offenders as an advertisement. Because one of the things that this guidance says, yes, you can say no to a sex offender, but you must give them a chance to appeal and have, which they are calling individualized assessment. It's the chance to appeal. So this is a key part, advocates, applicants, and tenants. If you're not finding success, one thing is, first of all, you're going to have to work for it. But one is to bring up the point that they're not giving you a chance to appeal. So let's kind of get into that so I can give you more on the applicant, advocate, and tenant side. Just remember, housing providers can pull an arrest record. They can pull a background checks on you. They can do that. This doesn't stop them from doing it. But what they do with it and how they use that information, that's the key. That's where we can do something about it. So housing providers, this is my call to action for you, is are there things that you can maybe do to help this population? One, maybe to refund the application fee for the background check if you're going to deny them based on the background check. It's difficult enough to get out there, but having to pay all these fees, let alone the down payments, that might be one way. Or if you work for someone, maybe you can suggest that they can write it off as expense if they're going to pull a background check if it costs anything. But return that to our returning peep. But the key here too is make sure you also give them a chance to appeal, because I see that in a lot of the housing discrimination cases right now is they're not paying attention to the guidance. Now the guidance says you need to look at a couple of things. You're going to see this again, but I wanted to give you a sample policy. The guidance says you must think about the nature of the conviction, housing providers, when did it occur, how long ago it was, and is there any mitigating factors that they can produce in the individualized assessment or the appeal to say, hey, look, I'm not going to be a health and safety risk to your peeps and or your property. Because again, that's their primary concern, other than there are biases, but I'm taking the holistic view. If this memo says, if they can show that, demonstrate that they are a risk to people and property, then a housing provider can say no, but they have to back that up. So advocates, can you explain, can you help your returning peep explain how the conviction does not create a risk? Is there mitigating evidence? And I have a list of a few that you can use. I don't know them all. I was kind of just picking here and there on things that might be helpful, and you can always add to the list. But know that you have the opportunity to be heard, even if you're turned down. And this is where I can tell you right now, not a lot of fair housing complaints get filed because people don't want to bother. It's just easier to move on. But what I'm finding with this population is the housing isn't so easy to move on. So our advocates and returning peeps may have to fight for a little bit more through education, by making our housing providers aware that this memo doesn't exist, by having an implementation plan that says, this is what I'm doing, this is how I'm not going to be a safety and health risk to your people. And if you're denied, that you have a right to have an appeal. So here are ways that you might challenge. In the supplement that I sent out to was I gleaned a letter. It looks something like this. You can either take pieces of this, but this at least will act as a format if you want to start trying to appeal for your returning peeps or have your returning peeps appeal when there's evidence that there's no reason why they shouldn't reconsider. bottom line, again, for housing providers and advocates, applicants, and tenants, this guidance says housing providers must look at the nature of the conviction, when did it occur, and they get a chance to appeal. Now, there are two safeguards. One is the manufacturing of illegal drugs, meth labs, I believe it says something to that effect, and the other one is registered lifetime sex offender. I do get a lot of calls, and I understand that is a difficult population to get housed. But again, if you can show why you are different now through this individualized assessment, and sometimes there are cases, Romeo and Juliet scenario. I'm 17, my boyfriend's 18, my parents don't like him, they call the police on him. He becomes a registered lifetime sex offender, we're married, got 5 kids later, this designation stays with him. I urinated in public as I was traveling all around. I don't know all the logistics, but that puts me into a category that makes it difficult to find housing. So know that your power lies also in individualized assessments and trying to explain your situation so that you can show how you're not a health and safety risk to people and property. Here are some examples I've thrown out there from school, job training, employment. It's hard to know where people are at. Letters from any kind of letters. Up here I put parole and probation officers, any types of letter, volunteer work, counseling, your support coordinator, your counselor, whatever that position is called. You know, get letters from them to show your earnest, your drive, your willingness, your change, and why you're not a risk. And I'm sorry you have to prove this because of the past, that people aren't willing to be so forgiving and try to help give everybody a hand up. But this is one way to try to combat that, because I want to give hope. I want to give you guys hope that we're still plugging along. It may take us a little while, but we're going to make it. Off of the cases, I wanted to give you some real examples of possible, I'm calling them possible discrimination examples, so that you know what discrimination can look like. It's one thing to say I've been discriminated against, or to have someone discriminate against you, but if you don't know what it looks like, then it's difficult to identify. Melissa, thank you for your comment. If I had a DUI 20 years ago and I went to rent in a place, then that would be, and they said no, such as the first one, this was 30 years ago, a drug possession. If I had a DUI, it was something that was so long ago and haven't been in trouble since. That's been very clear. That is not a reason to deny an application. I'm going to give you 3 settlements that have happened so far. And again, they are out there. This one, $80,000 settlement, because they were using all information. They weren't looking at what's going to help them decide if this person is a good tenant, right? They were using all kinds of information. So you have to give them a chance to appeal. There's where I highlighted it. Should conduct the individualized assessments. You've got to give them a chance to appeal, because there could be information housing provider you don't know. This is another case. You have to prove, housing provider, that the housing decision based on the criminal history does protect residents and property. Okay, it can't just because I think it would, or I have this stereotype in my mind that once a convict, always a convict. You know, you can't do that. You've got to have valid, and that's the good thing about this guidance, is you have to have solid evidence, because when you're tested and you're investigated, it will be asked. This is the biggest one recently, 1.2 million approximately, right? Sends a message. And this is where even in 2019, remember I told you, and I'm not even sure if you guys are aware of the 2016 memo, but you can't prohibit everyone from living there. You can't have the rule, I don't rent to felons. It doesn't work. This is relatively new. I want you guys to know about it. Something I'm kind of looking a little bit more into. It has to do with your background checks, all the background checks that they can run on you, or the consumer checks they can run on you. And I know from credit days that sometimes if they were going to deny you for your credit report, based on your credit report, like when you get a credit card, they have to send you an adverse action letter, which gives you the denial and where and they got the information. Well, I'm wondering if that's something that any housing providers, that we can put them on hold, because this CoreLogic is one of those types of agencies that kicks the information out to our housing providers. They rely on that information to make the decision. So if that information isn't right, which in this case it wasn't for CoreLogic, they were giving somebody information on a person, Mr. Wilson, who spent time in prison for a crime he didn't commit. And in 2009, the conviction was tossed out by the judge, the prosecutors dismissed the charges, and the record relating to the case was sealed. CoreLogic apparently obtained its inaccurate felony conviction information about Mr. Wilson from the inmate lookup, which was found, I guess, in the New York State Department of Corrections, I guess the DOCS system. It was unreliable and it was incorrect, and they didn't do their due diligence. So I also included a link there. It was not included in your handouts, but take a look at your consumer reports and see what your landlords are using. I don't really see any chats, questions in there. We're doing pretty good on time, Mary Lou.
Yeah, actually, we did have
Oh,
the question,
community
what's the definition of what is required to be part of the individualized assessment?
What is required to ask? You have to be denied a housing application based on your criminal history and then ask for an individualized assessment if they don't offer it.
Well, and I think they're asking, are there any requirements of what makes up an individualized assessment, so they can't just gloss over it?
No, because it's individualized. I might have different documents or different story. Everyone has a story. It's a different story. So there's nothing that I know of that says that they must as of yet. But if you're going to be in front of a reasonable person who might be able to make a indication if it's discriminatory or not, that's where the evaluation will come.
Okay. Yeah, I don't see.
Yeah,
I don't see any others right now.
Community pools do that. Is their provision for housing the key difference? Community pools, it must be back to the adult. They can do that because it's not housing. Melissa, that's the answer to that particular question. Okay, we're almost here, opening it up to see if you guys have more questions. All right, the case examples up there, and again, I'm hoping all these case examples give you hope to know and to thank you for all the work that you guys are doing. We're all working together to make our communities a better place. If we each come together, collaborate, and be a systematic whole, it can only make us all get better. For the two case examples on the screen, this was about, again, I believe our returning peeps is a vulnerable population. And this was about people treating people differently. So they would allow a white applicant with a criminal record in, but they wouldn't allow a black applicant with a criminal record in. And that's the kind of testing we do, that kind of stuff that they can show real hardcore discrimination. And those two cases are there. Here's my call to action again for you. Let's act as a community. Let's take ownership of the Fair Housing Rights and uphold the law, the promise, the spirit of Fair Housing Act, and second chance. Now let's give our returning peeps a second chance. Not everybody is based on a previous decision that might not have been so great. We serve returning peeps because we passionately believe that no matter what mistakes people have made, that they can positively transform their lives, respecting their dignity and humanity. Every single person on this planet has a story, so please don't judge people before you know them. The truth might surprise you. I can speak for myself because I know you guys were all angels when you were younger. You never did anything bad, nothing did anything wrong, but I was not an angel. I just never got caught, and I am so happy. The language out there is different, and now that the citizen part has been pointed out to me, thank you as well. I just was thinking returning citizens covered everybody, returning peeps, but that is a very good point. So I'll still figure out what to do with that. Be sure that you sign up for more of our classes. I did this today on reentry, which I have standalone classes. I do fair housing, I do disabilities, because that's another big one where, and we don't have a lot of time today, but if your returning citizen has a disability, you may be able to ask for reasonable accommodations. Now, that's a whole topic in itself, asking for reasonable accommodation, but just to say, and it has to apply, but let's say that I have a drug history and all my criminal justice records are about crimes with drugs. I have a disability. I am an addict, but I finally got caught. I finally got clean, and I finally got out. And so now I'm saying if I can prove that this was a disability, I'm asking for them to overlook or to give me a reasonable accommodation depending on what I'm asking for. And it may need to be looked at in that frame. Okay, but that's a mouthful in itself, and it's only going to apply to conditions where it actually does apply. But a lot of people don't realize that those with disabilities have powers to ask for reasonable accommodations in any setting. In housing, that is, in any housing setting. And that's where they could ask for things to make their life a little bit easier because it allows people to use and enjoy life just like everyone else that's not disabled. Okay. So here is my contact information. With that, Mary Lou, I'm going to open it up for questions or comments. I really do appreciate you all allowing me to share my passion with you. It is something that I hold dear, and I'm looking out to get out there into all kinds of agencies to do this free training since we are grant funded. Other than that, Mary Lou, do we have any other questions?
Thank you, Cheri. How interesting and how informative, and it's a very complex topic that you really gave simplicity to. So we're very grateful for your being with us today, and I'd like to have you back on a regular basis, lest we should forget some of these things or need to understand them better. And as you said, there's some other focus topics that you have as well. So I don't. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, it seems like it's changing all the time.
Yes, and hopefully changing for the better. I mean, it's not uncommon where we see rental properties saying they won't rent to people with misdemeanors. So, and if no one knows better, they have been able to get along doing that for quite some time, I think. So I know that I don't see any other, there was a question about a fee that I didn't quite understand from Linda. I don't know if you want to clarify that, Linda, but I appreciate your information being shared, Cheri. And one of the questions was, is do you provide advocates? And you do provide advocacy directly, and that's why you're sharing your information, right, Cheri?
That is correct. Anyway, and you can always send me an email and say, hey, you know, we think this is a bad actor, and we can turn it over to enforcement, or I can offer a free training, or sometimes it's just making them aware. So any way that we can help our returning peeps get housed, we are there.
This is Linda, Mary Lou, and Cheri.
Hey, Linda.
Hi. I know, I'm so glad you're still doing this. It's so wonderful.
Thank you.
But at one point we had like a second chance housing that came into town, and they would charge an extra like $50 a month for felons. And if they proved that over the year they didn't destroy the property, then they would drop that fee. So I'm just wondering, it seems to me like that was discrimination, that they were charging that extra fee. And that was my question, does that constitute an extra, you know, discrimination?
Okay, so is this a house that everybody is the same, in the same position, and they're just moving in and like a group home, if you would, or a transition?
No, this was an apartment complex. And
Oh.
apparently they had several of them around Pima County and in Maricopa County.
I would say no. You know, the biggest thing on there, what they would look at is who are they saying no to? You know, does it overwhelmingly follow the category of African American, Native American, and Hispanic?
Felons. It was basically felons. It was people returning. It was second chancers.
Yeah, I'd say let me send that. I mean, again, anyone can send me an email. I would send that over to our enforcement department. Of course, what they would probably do what I would do because I don't know what they do all the way, but I would go to my HUD person because we have HUD people.
Oh,
so,
okay.
or have attorneys because the attorneys, if they want to take the case, or a HUD, or because they have to find out if, you know, how can they deal with this to show. And just so you guys know, Arizona is a one permission recording state. So when our testers go out there, they are wired with their tape recorder, and that's the proof that gets used. So it's not hearsay. So I hope that helped, Linda.
Yes, it did. Thanks much, Cheri. That's great. Thank you.
And Cheri, there's another question about halfway houses. Who governs them? And I know that's not exactly your area, but then it says when they say they don't accept people designated to have a serious mental illness or someone who's pregnant, is that discriminatory?
Okay, well, you said some disturbing words there. So I'm going to move this. A couple of things. One, I see the question, how long does an appeal process typically take? I don't know. It's individualized on how, but you know, it should be relatively quick. If you appeal, ask, meet, set up a time to meet, and then explain, and then they say maybe 24, 48 hours. That would be my guess. Who covers the halfway houses? What I can tell you there is I would follow the money. If you have an issue with a halfway house or I don't know, is that even, they still use the word halfway house, the transitional? I don't know. I don't want to say it incorrectly, but if you follow the money, if they are federally funded, they have a lot more rules that they have to abide by. So I'm not sure which halfway houses, where they're getting their money. That's going to determine who governs them, if that is helpful. They don't accept designated SMI. I would find, I don't know the whole logistics, but to say that I don't take disabled and I don't take pregnant, yes, that is highly discriminatory. You got familial status. Pregnancy is considered under familial status. And disability is definitely one of the biggest categories, highly violated amongst all states in the United States. So if a lot of people don't know the rules. Does this apply, Sonia, to renting an apartment? Yes, it does. Remember, this HUD guidance is for all peoples. I'm hoping that helps. Very, very good. Thank you, Don. It is so hard now sometimes to know in a training webinar if you were able to keep everybody engaged so that they learned something and they found it worthwhile. And I really do tell people to take these classes like 3 times, so because it's just the amount of information is dense. That way you get comfortable with it. But let me know how I can be of any help at any time. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheri. And you've given us all courage and empowered us with knowledge. So I know I've been excited ever since I went through your first training, and I'm looking forward to going through many more in the future. So thanks again, and encourage everyone to make sure you stay connected with Cheri for any ongoing issues that you come across. So many of us in the coalition work with people that do have those criminal charges, and if you can't find a place to live, you're pretty well stuck at step 1. So so thank you for what you do, Cheri. Highly valuable. And I'm going to just share one last time. You all are probably tired of seeing it by now, but I'm going to share one last time the request for you to do a survey before you leave the meeting today. We're going to be able to finish up now a few minutes early. So I promise you that if you could just click on that link and answer those 3 questions, it won't take you more than a minute. If you are interested in being added to the coalition email list, make sure you note that there. We have a question about it. Has this been recorded? And it has been. So we're fairly new at recording meetings, and we'll take a look and see what all we can do with that with the approval of all of our participants today. But we did record it, and I know I have Cheri always records hers, I think, because I know I have a copy of one that I'd been through, and it's just fabulous to have. So as you said, the issues can get sort of complex, and you need that extra help or reminding. So if I will, it looks like we're good. I'm going to go ahead and give everyone blessings to disengage. I appreciate you being with us today very much. One thing I'll mention quickly, our second Wednesday in August, we're going to be having a focus on mental health diversion at the felony level in the Maricopa County Superior Court. And the Maricopa County Attorney's Office is going to be providing that presentation. So it's a long-awaited presentation. We're very excited. It's the first time we've asked them for many years to come. So it was my bad that I haven't had them sooner, but they do have an official felony mental health diversion program up in place in Maricopa County. And our intention is for the next few meetings, to go around the state and inquire at the county attorney's offices around the state about their mental health diversion programs that are taking place at the Superior Court felony level. So don't miss that. And again, thanks to all for being with us. And I look forward to seeing you all in August. Stay safe, stay well, and special thanks to Justin Benjamin. We're really glad to get to know you a little better, and you have an important part to play here in all this work, Justin. So thank you again for jumping in with us today. All right, have a good day to all. And I'll leave this on. I appreciate it. I'll leave this on for a while so folks can complete the survey. Thank you.
Bye, Mary.
Bye now. Thanks, Kerry.